Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I had previously taught on Skillshare.com and I had made a class called Introduction to Pastels where I gave you a really in-depth tutorial or course on painting with pastels. Here is a section of that tutorial on how to paint an orange, and I think it has a lot in it as an introduction to pastels. So if you would like to see more pastels from me, please let me know. Put some comments below, and I will be happy to teach more pastels along with the watercolors. Here I have started to prepare my work surface, which is a watercolor paper. Actually, the other side is used, and I'm just priming it with that colourfix primer that we talked about earlier. I'm just brushing it on and then I let it dry. Then I'm going to use my hard pastel or a pencil, a pastel pencil, to draw in my image, which is just a circle here and a horizon line and a little shadow area. I'm always thinking about light and shadow. I'm blocking in my base colors with my harder pastels. Always use your harder pastels and then you work up to your softer pastels, because you cannot usually use a hard pastel over a soft pastel. It won't adhere. So I'm just blending color on top of color here. And I'm thinking about light and shadow. So I'm putting my lighter colors where the light is and where the reflective light is. I don't always like to use black as a color. I will mix black. I would use a ultramarine blue and maybe a dark, burnt umber brown color. Sometimes I just use gray like I did here, but I'm going to be adding color on top of that. The beauty of pastel is the brilliance of the colors and how they shine through. Each layer shines through and it's just beautiful. I'm starting to add my background here, some warm colors on each side. So I have a cool background and sort of a warm surface on the bottom. I'm taking my isopropyl alcohol here and I'm solidifying the surface colors that I just applied. This is my underpainting. And I always say it kind of looks ugly before it looks good. So a lot of people might even discard their painting at this point, but I never do. I always say it always looks kind of, fugly until it looks good. And you can see right there I got a little orange mixed up with that gray, and it's really making a really pretty color. The isopropyl alcohol, when you're done, can look a lot like a watercolor piece, and you can actually use watercolors instead of pastels to begin with on as your base. But I would recommend that you don't use watercolors or even maybe the alcohol on your papers, like your Canson Mitienes. If you use too much, the paper's going to warp and it'll affect the fibers of your paper as well. So I usually only use this on my sanded or color fixed papers. So you can see I got some browns into my blues up there because my brush was still a little bit of dirty from dipping it in the alcohol and bringing it to that yellow ochre down there. But that's okay. I have no problem with that. I think it's going to look great, especially after we add more color to it. I'm going to let this completely dry, and then we're going to put in a fresh color on top of this of, yet again, our harder pastels. Kind of like we're doing the whole thing over again. But now we have a nice base down. It's all solid. There's paper shining through still in places. It's really going to help. I like to add the complement in the shadow area. So here I'm adding blue into my orange. And I'm using gradients of orange on the orange. So I'm going from lighter yellow orange into the deeper red orange colors, and blue for the shadow areas. When it mixes together, it's going to make a beautiful shadow. I will keep working this. It just is a push and pull kind of thing until you achieve the look you're looking for. I'm adding green here from, oranges are not one color. Sometimes they have green on them. And I'm adding the same green, look at that down below, onto that darker orange, and it's going to appear to be yellowish, so that's fine. It's a matter of just experimenting. Just experiment and have fun. Can't make a mistake. There's no mistakes. It's just learning. And every time you go do a new painting, you discover something new. And that's the joy of painting to me. So I'm adding more background color. And I'm just blending with the pastel. And the background, because we put that texture on it, is giving me a little texture. Also, like a canvas, or I don't like it to be perfect ever. I like it to have those lines in it. It just looks more organic and it's just beautiful. I'm adding my lights. So I like to pop the darks and the lights. I know my shadow of my light is not good here. I'm going to switch that soon. But when I take my hand away, you can see that I like to pop, sort of make an extreme next to the shadow areas so the darks pop. I'm actually adding pink here. I do like to add cools on top of warms a lot. I think it adds like sparkle. I'm just very much dabbing to start add, texture to the piece. Like an orange has that dappled, edge, that dappled surface on it. So I'm starting to just like make my marks, and, and I actually did not have any reference to go by here. I'm just kind of doing this out of my head. So it would probably be better to have an orange picture in front of you, or a real orange. So I switched over to a new image here. Same image, but a little bit further along. I've added background color. Same thing, not blending with a blender. I might have blended a tiny bit with my fingers closer to the orange there, and just to blur it a little bit. But you can see I added blues and purples and a beigey yellow to where the light source is. And I will keep adding and adding to that as I go along. I added some purple under the orange for the shadow area, and some reflective orange onto the table. Reflective color from the table onto the orange on the bottom. And I'm just adding detail here, pushing, pulling. Take a step back. Take a second away and look back in a minute or two and see if you see something that's distracting, or you want to fix, or you want to add. It's really coming along now. And you'll see your painting evolve. You want to try not to overwork our paintings, so I think sometimes to take a step back and look at it. But with pastels, I mean, it's forgiving. So you can go in and erase something with a kneaded eraser if you need to. So unlike watercolors, where if you put a mark down, it's there. It's really hard to lift without ruining your surface paper. But with pastels, you could probably, with this surface and a sanded surface, go in with a kneaded eraser and lift some of that pastel, sort of like silly putty. Just press it down and lift it. Press it down and lift it until you got your tooth back and you can add more color. And that is looking pretty good. And it's not looking fugly anymore. See, it's really evolved, and it's really looking into a beautiful piece at this point. I'm adding some Rembrandt soft pastels on top to give those little, dimples in the orange peel. And I'm going to add some grayish blue into the area as well. I'm using, this is probably Selenier, they're very soft, so I'm kind of pushing hard to get those highlights in where it's really reflective. So that's a very soft pastel. There's the cool blue. And just like if, we're doing an orange, but if you were doing a skin tone, it would be the same thing. There's always kind of blues coming out from your skin. And warm colors, you'd probably see greens in there. So really observe what you're painting for color. I love how that light blue is against that bright orange. That's really going to make it sparkle. So now I'm finishing up my painting. I'm working on my background. I'm very lightly adding, still this is hard pastels I can see I'm using here. That one might be a little softer, but I'm adding my highlights. And the highlights are always last. And I'm just softening up some edges. So I like some hard, some soft, like lost and found edges. It's always beautiful. And final details and tidying up and just finishing up the painting. So I'm putting little darks like there in right next to the highest lights. So that's going to make it really pop in the end. Here I decided that I wanted the base of the orange to be more grounded, so I added more purple to it. I don't usually like to use black per se in any painting I do. I like to make blends that kind of resemble black, but I do like the purple going on here. And I blended a little bit with my fingers, but if you keep adding the complement over it, you're going to get a beautiful dark shadow type color. And I'm using softer pastels here. Little lost and found edges. Some of them are very, very in focus, and some parts they are not. Your eye is just going to blend all that together. Oh, I'm adding green to my base, my tabletop. And I can see that I've made some strokes going vertically, some horizontally. I see that a lot in Impressionist paintings. There's a lot of cross-hatching going on. Sometimes I can't leave well enough alone. We make decisions as we paint. We get into that zone and we just kind of move it along. Oh, that looks pretty good. Here is our finished orange, and I hope you enjoyed learning along with me how to use pastels while drawing this sweet little picture. The next video is going to be a little bit more advanced, and we're going to do a teacup. I hope to see you there.